Newcastle plus 2.25, Southampton and Watford over 2.5, Norwich plus 0.5. Made some profit in the Leicester-Everton game and in Mark's Bundesliga goals bet as well. So you might think that I'd be happy about this as a team player, but I can't help but feel like I'm not bringing the best out of the duo that I have at my disposal. So time to inspire. This week we've got two big Premier League games. They're coming thick and fast at the moment. But we've also got two games from the continent as well. Big games in Serie A and in the Bundesliga with Matt Scott, football broadcaster, and Marco Hare with me. Before we get going, a reminder that although Matchbook is an exchange site, there are ACCAs now available. You can bundle up various selections into a multi. If you're sitting down this weekend to watch some of the football that we are chatting about, that could be a very nice option indeed. Head to the Matchbook site to find out how. But I want to get straight into the games, and it has to be the Manchester derby where we start, because no matter the status of the two sides, it's always been one of England's biggest rivalries. City are the home side, and they are a very short price favourite, unsurprisingly, 1.35 on the Matchbook site, with United 10.5 as we record on Thursday morning. The draw 5.7. City minus 1.5 goals at 1.93, and United plus 1.5 goals, 1.98, with a high goal line, high goal expectancy, of course, over 3.25 goals, 2.06, and the under 1.85. Marco Hare, I want you to start by talking me through this one. Both teams winners in midweek, but City, what a short price that is. What are your thoughts? What leaps out on the screen there as we see the odds pop up?
Not a lot, to be honest, Ali. It's very difficult to get excited about this match from a betting perspective, from my opinion anyway. I opposed City last week with a big handicap. I opposed them again midweek, obviously against Newcastle. They were probably unfortunate not to win that match, 2-2, probably an unfair reflection on their dominance. But then they turned up at Burnley and put 4 past them. Just the 11th time they've done it away from home under Pep Guardiola. And could easily have scored more goals as well. And I think that's the danger, really, when you do try to oppose City with these big handicaps. I try to do it more away from home than at the Etihad, because they've just got such a galaxy of well-stocked, forward-thinking players. It's, Aguero's out injured, but Gabriel Jesus comes in, and it's just so difficult to oppose them when they've got these big handicaps, because they've got so much firepower. I thought that Newcastle game was a bit of a microcosm of their season, really. The underlying numbers have been very similar to what they did last season, when they obviously won the title. But football's a low-scoring sport. Freak results happen, and City have dodged a few last season, but kind of come around to a few this year, and especially with those defensive injuries catching up too. Liverpool have had a few fortunate breaks, and I guess that's why there's an 11-point gap between the two teams. Pep very touchy in midweek after that Burnley game, very sarcastic in his reaction to the press, saying, the title race is over and nobody's giving his team a chance. That's nonsense, because he completely believes he can win the title. And I think there's no better way, really, for City to come out and put on a show and show that they're still in this title race by putting United to the sword.
They've got this game. They've got Leicester coming up, Arsenal as well. It's, there's almost no gap too big when you talk about Man City, but we will know a lot about the title race and the status of it by Boxing Day, you'd say.
Absolutely. And look, the City probably won't win the title, and that's fair enough. We can see that in the odds. I'm not making any grand statement there, but I saw a stat in the week that if City are to reach the same points tally as last year or better it, they pretty much have to win every single game now between now and the end of the season, which seems madness, really. But I'm not gonna say they won't, because we've seen in the last 2 years that they're very capable of doing, crazy 20-game winning streaks at one go. And coming into this match, they've got the extra day rest in the schedule. United had on paper a tough game against Spurs on Wednesday night. City played on the Tuesday. I just found it very difficult to kind of oppose them in any sort of way here. But then the odds don't really appeal to me either. I don't really want to back them on a handicap. I don't want to back United on a handicap either. So my approach to this, go on.
I was just going to flag up maybe a goals angle, because I know the line is high, and that's not surprising. But Rashford's in excellent form at the moment. The Manchester City back line struggling to keep clean sheets in the same way for personnel reasons more than systemic reasons, you'd say. Any interest in a goal line?
Yeah, well, my thinking was to try and combine the two, really, City to win and over 2.5 goals, which isn't available on Matchbook right now as we talk. But 24 hours before the game, that market should become available. Or looks back City to win and both teams to score. I think you obviously get a bigger price than around 1.8 on City and over 2.5 goals. But that's been the method of their victory in 9 of their 10 league wins this year. They did so 20 times last season alongside overs. They've only failed to win 3 of the last 29 at home in the Premier League. They've won this by, including over 2.5 goals in 8 of the last 12 when hosting Big Six teams at the Etihad. And, as well as United played in midweek, Spurs are pretty poor. And, United have taken 21 points from their first 15 games. Solskjaer has to win his next 2 games if he's to surpass the 26 points that United had after 17 games last season when Mourinho was sacked, which just kind of goes to emphasise how poor they've been in terms of results. And then obviously Martial's missing as well, which, whilst they didn't miss him in midweek, the stats bear it out. When he's not playing, their win percentage drops from 65% to 32% under Solskjaer, and their goals per game drops from 2.24 to 1.14. As you say, Rashford was in excellent form in midweek, and you'll need him to be so again because City have kept 5 clean sheets in 17 since Laporte was injured. But United, their defensive process was actually very, very strong earlier in the season, but it's regressed as the season's gone on. And I was quite alarmed, really. Since February, they've kept 2 clean sheets in 26 Premier League games, which just isn't ideal. City generating 1.96 XG from open play, which is comfortably the highest in Europe's top 5 leagues, even past PSG in Liga. So, as I say, very difficult to oppose City, even with a big handicap. So I'll be combining the two, City to win over 2.5 goals.
Matt Scott, what are your thoughts on this game? I noticed, maybe a bit unusually given their fairly low points tally, United, that actually in games against the top teams in this division, they've done fairly well this season, beating Leicester and Chelsea, drawing with Liverpool, beating Spurs, of course, last night. They drew with Arsenal. In a wider sense, the big games aren't the problem for Solskjaer's United, and it's probably where he's shown himself to be most adept, actually, in these bigger occasions.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And I'm sorry, Mark, I'm going to state an alternative case. And that's why this game is such a very difficult one to pick because, okay, let's start with the basics. Manchester United away from home have been terrible this season. They've got 1 win in 7. I think we can rule out a United win because City have been very rampant at home. Their goal difference, even though they have lost a game, obviously, against Wolves at home. That was 2-0 in Wolves' favour. The goal difference at the Etihad is plus 15. So they are rampant when at the Etihad. But we do know they can be beaten. Liverpool have done it. Wolves, as I say, Norwich did it in such a stunning fashion. And what's really interesting about those 3 games is there is a common thread to them. City get the ball to their forward players most effectively, most dangerously when threading a through ball between the defence. They're averaging, across the games that they've won, they're averaging 3 through balls a game. And that's really important when you've got players like Raheem Sterling to run in behind. You've got Aguero and Jesus. Actually, Jesus is a pretty shocking striker statistically. His shot conversion rate before this round of matches in midweek was 1 in 9, which is absolutely terrible if you consider that the average Premier League strikers is almost 1 in 5. So he's almost half as good as everybody else statistically in terms of.
Might be looking a bit better after that double in midweek.
Yeah, absolutely. So that notwithstanding, so I'm going to take that. I am absenting those 2 goals from the analysis there. But he hasn't performed well in that. And even Aguero, actually, his shot conversion rate's good. He does beat the keeper, but his accuracy is dreadful. One of the worst in all the Premier League. So the key to it is preventing them getting those chances close to goal, preventing the through balls. And what's interesting, is that against Liverpool, Wolves and Norwich, the 3 games that they were beaten in, there was only 1 through ball between the 3. So 0.33 on average per 90 minutes in those games versus 3 on average per 90 minutes in the other games. So there is obviously a template for Solskjaer to go at this game with.
You trust him and United to set up effectively in that low block to deny the balls through? That they had a good first half against Liverpool, playing pretty defensively.
Yeah, well, last night I heard from the touchline cam. I thought the Amazon coverage was excellent, by the way. It was a bit of an experiment we haven't seen before. That Amazon had all these, simulcast games. I stuck with the Spurs United game because I had an interest in it. And I heard on the what you would call the stump cam in cricket, the touchline mics from that game was pretty sure it was Solskjaer, going by the accent, shouting "lock the middle." And as soon as he said that, you saw this like Roman testudo formation. This like 9 players immediately compacting in front of the 18-yard box, locking the middle, and that seemed to me to be what he will be employing when it comes against Manchester City. And it is a very effective formation because you know that Gabriel Jesus is not somebody who's going to be a target man. So you can concede that space wide, because if the crosses come in, they're very unlikely to get as far as the striker. When the striker is him, it might be Riyad Mahrez up there, it might be Bernardo Silva, although he's likely to be crossing it might be Raheem Sterling. None of them is going to beat Harry Maguire in the air. So that's where I think that this game is going to be played as far as Manchester United are concerned, and I think that comes in handy. That opportunity to be able to do that. And they put it into practice yesterday very effectively against Spurs. Spurs, it was only one bit of magic that from Dele Alli that got them that goal, and you can't rule out that happening for City. But I don't see this being a high-scoring game on that basis. I think that this is what United will do. They'll set out to try and deny City those opportunities. And also, United are second best in the Premier League for goals scored on the break. So, when playing against a high-pressing, possession-based City side, when you've got the pace, unbelievable pace of Marcus Rashford and Daniel James to take the advantage of, there is a strong weapon there. So I quite like Manchester United plus 1.75. I think that seems a decent bet. It's a 75% return on investment if it comes in. And you might also think about buying the fouls camp, because when United do attack Manchester City, what you'll find is one of them will be tripped up in the midfield. That's just the way that all the top teams, not just City, although actually City in terms of fouls per 90 minutes out of possession, City are substantially, materially higher than anybody else in tripping players over. But so that might be something to look at as well if there's a market for that. But I think in the handicap betting, for me, I think this will be a closer game. If United can employ that testudo formation in front of their goal when they need to, I think that can be something that could frustrate City.
Okay, a few different angles, a few different thoughts on the Manchester derby. Next up is Everton against Chelsea. Everton at Goodison Park. For this one, the lunchtime kickoff on Saturday, 3.62. As we record on Thursday morning, Chelsea 2.07 and the draw 3.92. Everton plus half a goal on the handicap, 1.854, and Chelsea minus half a goal, 2.08. Over 2.75 goals is 1.92 and the under 1.99. Matt, well, Chelsea won in midweek at home to Aston Villa. Probably a fair result, not the most convincing performance. Everton all over the place against Liverpool at Anfield. Plenty of reports that today, Thursday, is somewhat of a D-Day for Marco Silva and for the decision-making team at Everton. I suppose you have to caveat this with if Marco Silva is still there and if he is off his throne, because it certainly looks like the players are struggling under his system and have been for quite some time now.
Yeah, look, I didn't see it, but I heard Ali McCoy talking about the game earlier, saying that how bereft of confidence the Everton players looked, and that is always a sign that the board is looking for. That is the X factor to this game. The ex-manager factor could be the thing that really does throw a spanner in the works of any analysis of this game. So, if there is that new manager bounce, then all of our preparation could go out the window. But actually, he obviously is odds on in the betting to be the next manager to be sacked, Marco Silva. But in actual fact, Everton haven't been that bad, believe it or not. They're in the bottom 3, but it's a false position. if you look at what the key metrics are of build-up play, in terms of possession, crossing, through balls, XG, and both, that's to say going forward and defensively, they are actually the 7th best team in the Premier League in that regard. And that's the thing that the manager does have some control over. It's how he sets the team up to play. But what they can't seem to control is in the final third, going forward and defensively. I mean, the sharp end, both ends, they've been really, really bad. They don't have a goal scorer is essentially their problem. Between them, Richarlison, Walcott, Iwobi and Keane have a chance conversion rate of 6.2%. I mean, that is... I was talking about Gabriel Jesus as being bad, but that's almost half.
When we talk about conversion rates, especially when they're extremely low or extremely high, that's the sort of thing where there is an extent to which you can put that down to bad luck or good luck on the other side of things. And generally in more stats or analytical terms, you would expect that to rise. You wouldn't expect that to be at 6% for the whole season, or would you? I mean, we are talking...
That's basically it. I mean, unless they are dreadful. I mean, I think, to be honest, Walcott's had one decent season in front of goal. I've never really been convinced by Iwobi as a goal scorer. Keane obviously hasn't settled in this country. So, Richarlison... He is better than he's been showing, but he's not a centre forward, and they've tried to play him through the middle, and it hasn't worked. So, I would demur in saying that they are going to be go to the mean of 20% shot conversion ratio. Any of them, I just don't think they're good enough players, and I think that's been a recruitment problem. They've not really replaced Lukaku. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin's shot conversion rate is very good. It's up to 23%, which is really good. But the problem is he doesn't pull the trigger enough. I mean, he's only had 13 shots across 12 appearances for Everton, several of them off the bench. I mean, he's young, so perhaps Silva doesn't think that he can last a 38-game Premier League season. But I think he should have got in the team more. And if he had, they might have had more chance of winning games. But it's at the other end as well that they're just as bad. Jordan Pickford's the last line of defence for them. And although they are denying the chances, he in terms of XG denied, his added value is not even in the top 20 of Premier League goalkeepers. Now, that's the England goalkeeper we're talking about, and he doesn't keep the ball out of the net apart from when it comes straight at him. That is a real concern. I mean, he's great with the ball at his feet, and that's why Gareth Southgate likes him, but I just don't see him being the side of the player that Everton or indeed England need. I mean, if you were to put, say, Alisson or Ederson and Lukaku into that team, I think that there's an argument to say they would be challenging for Europe. But this is not what they've been able to do. Their main trick is to hit crosses. And all it takes, I guess, is for a few of them to hit, because they are quite good with their head. Iwobi even has scored the odd goal. Richarlison
Chelsea conceded from a good cross from the right, El Mohammadi on Wednesday night. It's not an unbelievable vulnerability of theirs, but certainly when Christensen plays, I think there is a feeling amongst fans that they are a little more vulnerable, a little weaker from aerial balls. Valencia worked it well out wide last week as well. Mark, as Matt said,
just on that point, Fikayo Tomori, there are 10 centre halves, only 10 centre halves who've lost more aerial duels than Fikayo Tomori, and he hasn't played all season, throughout the season. So that in terms of being in the air, that is their weakness. So this is a chance. I mean, I would give Everton a chance. If they got a bit of confidence about them, if the new manager, if the manager situation absent that, I would say that this would end up a draw. But that is the X factor, the ex-manager factor, the chaos factor in this game. I don't know.
Always keen on a well-priced draw, aren't you, Matt?
Mark, 3.85 is pretty good.
Yeah, Mark, with all the caveats that we've applied with regards to Marco Silva, is there anything punting-wise that stands out in the prices in Everton and Chelsea?
I mean, when I looked at the prices first, my opinion was to get against Chelsea because I thought they were too short. But I think the evidence in the last week, especially that last-minute goal that Everton conceded at Leicester, you could see the life kind of falling out of Marco Silva. He almost looks like he was in tears at the end of the game. And I can just imagine the confidence and belief in that team evaporated massively too, because for large parts of that game, they were very competitive and very decent. They did get overrun in the last half an hour, but from an outside perspective, there were positives in that. But then go to Liverpool, your biggest rivals. They almost down tools before the game, played a back five, conceded 5 goals with a Liverpool team missing 4 of its frontline stars. It's not ideal, really, and it's 8 defeats in 11 now since September's international break. I thought a change would be made already. It's not, but yeah, by the time the game comes around, there might well be a change. So it's difficult to really look at this game with real confidence. But right now, with the conditions as they are right now, I'm happy to take Chelsea at odds against, because they went off at 1.85 in this match in March. I think they're a better team than they were in March. Odds against is absolutely fine for a team who I've rated as third best in the Premier League from open play, above Liverpool and behind City and Leicester, based on what we've seen so far. That's what the numbers are saying anyway. Everton, normally pretty reliable at Goodison Park, but they've already lost 3 times there this season. Admittedly, one of those against Sheffield United was very unfortunate, but then one of their wins, which was against Wolves, was also very fortunate. So swings and roundabouts, really. Their data's dropped off dramatically in the last 6 to 8 weeks. They've conceded in 12 of the last 13, conceded at least twice in 9 of those games as well. And, defensively, whilst the process is okay, they're still so vulnerable to counterattacks and set pieces. In possession, they're not creating enough. There's no real philosophy, no real approach to what Silva's trying to do. I think his selections are pretty muddled as well. So you just look at Chelsea and they're in a much more, much better clarity in terms of what they're trying to do under Frank Lampard. 5 wins from 6 away from home in the Premier League. They're playing with freedom away from home, scoring 19 goals in those games. Probably deserved to win most of them. The one game they didn't win was away at Man City when they were the better team. And if you actually exclude the top 3 from the Premier League right now, they've won 9 of 12 games. I've been very, very impressed with them so far this season. There are a few caveats around Chelsea too, but I think odds against the way Everton are at the moment.
How do they rate defensively, Chelsea? Because for all the benefits, it's clear that they're not a top-tier defensive team. Does that stack up in the data as much as the eye test? We've got MDC85 in the comments, wondering if Chelsea and BTTS might be an option here, because for all of Everton's issues, there are chances against this Chelsea team, as Aston Villa showed on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I think we've seen numerous times now, especially away from home, Chelsea will give it a go, and that leaves gaps for opposition teams. And yeah, defensively in terms of ratings, attack-wise, they're second only to Man City, quite far ahead as well, the rest in second place. But defensively is where they do trip up a little bit, especially from open play. They're down in 7th or 8th position off the top of my head. But, balance that out. And because their attack is so strong and creating so many chances, and they've also been very efficient at taking those chances, they are rated pretty highly. But yeah, absolutely. My issue really is with Everton, really, and it's just they're trying to pigeonhole Sigurdsson into the team when I'm not sure the balance of that midfield is right. They've obviously been handicapped by midfield injuries, as well as the sale of I can't remember his name now. Who they sold to PSG, the defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah, he's been a big loss, really, and I think they've struggled to. The replacement they brought in the summer has been injured. They've really struggled in that midfield, and in terms of creativity and just being inspiring on the ball, it's been very bleak, really. Their numbers sort of bore that out as well, but at home they should be expected to score against this Chelsea team. Okay,
plenty of depth in our analysis of the Manchester derby and in Chelsea and Everton. I'm going to go to the European games this weekend, and 2 big ones particularly. You've both got an interest in European football. Mark, you're enjoying Serie A this season. Matt, you've always kept a close eye on the Bundesliga. So I'm going to ask you guys to take me through these games individually, starting with Lazio and Juve. Mark O'Hare, this is Saturday evening, 7:45, and Lazio are 2.96 with Juventus 2.48 and the draw 3.56. Lazio plus 0.0, 2.14, and Juve minus 0.0, 1.8. Over 2 3/4 goals, 2.04, and the under 1.83 at the moment. Mark, this is Simone Inzaghi's 3rd place Lazio against Maurizio Sarri's 2nd place Juve, not running away with the league this year. Set the scene for me here, and you got quite excited about this as a punting prospect as well.
Yeah, I think there's 2 angles. There's one really strong angle, really, but I'm really looking forward to this. It should be really good fun. At this point, 12 months ago, Juventus had an 11-point lead at the top of Serie A. They're trailing into now by 1 point. after dropping points at home against Sassuolo last weekend. Sarri said his players didn't use their brains in that 2-2 draw with Sassuolo. There definitely were a few brain farts in defence, but they didn't win that game because an 18-year-old goalkeeper making his debut for Sassuolo was inspiring, really, but in between the sticks, denied them the victory. Only the third time they failed to win in the league under Sarri. But despite that, I've just not been completely convinced by them just yet. They've not really clicked into gear. They're still very much the Juve of old from what I've seen, getting the job done, not really offering too much delightful attacking style, which we were probably promised when Sarri took over, especially his Napoli team. But they've only won by 2 or more goals twice in the league this season, which kind of goes to show that they are living off reasonably small margins. Defensively, they've not looked massively assured in Europe or domestically either. They've only kept 5 clean sheets in Italy, and that's led to 8 of 14 games going over to 2.5 goals. And I think that's the angle for this game because it landed when they went away to Inter Milan and Atalanta. It landed when they hosted Napoli as well. It's normally quite a good thing when Juventus take on a top 6 team, especially away from home. Goals normally follow, but Lazio, I think, are slightly underrated here. They're the form team in Italy, 6 wins on the spin. Really, really impressive last weekend, putting Udinese away 3-0. Udinese, a very defensively minded team, a kind of game where Lazio in the past would have struggled really, but the league's top goal scorers this year, 33 goals and 14. Ciro Immobile's got 17 of those.
I was going to say, I'm enjoying the comments that we're able to float in live nowadays because it's doing my job for me. Here we are along the bottom, P. Geesley, Ciro Immobile on fire and Juve struggling lately. He wonders if Lazio +0 is a play here. Immobile has been sensational. He's had such a strange career, hasn't he? Periods where he's been incredible and one very notable period in Germany where it didn't quite work out for him. But they'll head into this feeling quite confident by the sound of things, Lazio.
Absolutely, and so they should, because Immobile is, Simone Inzaghi's built his team around Ciro Immobile this year, and he's got 17 goals. He could have had 2 more because he's given 2 penalties away to teammates, almost kind of hoping they can get a couple of goals, get their confidence up. So that to me shows there's real harmony, a togetherness in the camp as well. And I think huge credit needs to go to Simone Inzaghi because he's adapting this team every season we see them play because. Yeah, he's built this team around the number 9 in Immobile, but they can counter-attack, they can bring teams onto them, hit them on the break. Immobile is great at leading the line there, but now they've also got the ability to pick defences apart because look behind him, there's Luis Alberto, who leads the league with 9 assists, Joaquin Correa and Sergei Milinkovic-Savic, who had a bit of a difficult season last year, but he's really come to the fore this time around. So they've got ammunition going forward, and that's completely borne out by the underlying data as well. Only Atalanta are bettering Lazio in terms of XG open play, shots inside the penalty area. They've scored in all but one of their games so far. I fully expect them to score against this Juventus team at the weekend. And that to me brings into the goals-based angle because I think there's terrific value on over 2.5, around 1.86. Lazio's games alone this year are averaging 3.36 goals, 79% going over 2.5. At the Olimpico, 4 of 7 gone over 3.5. And under Inzaghi, 10 of 16 when hosting top 6 teams have gone over 2.5 goals as well. I fully expected this line to be a lot steeper. I thought over 2.5 would be perhaps sub 1.7. So to get anything above 1.8, I think is a great bet. But going back to the original question from the reader or the watcher, I think Lazio a good value plus a 0 start in the draw no bet market, but also goals as well.
Right. I think we can all agree that we'll be going towards goals here, but not being put off that Lazio pick on the handicap either. Right, over to Germany, over to Matt Scott. We've got surprise leaders, I think it's fair to say, in the Bundesliga, similar to Serie A. Bayern Munich not running away with the title this year. And it's Gladbach, Borussia Mönchengladbach, who lead the league at the moment. They're playing against Bayern on Saturday. I think it's first against third. And I suppose the first thing to do is run through the odds here. Gladbach, top of the table, at home to Bayern, 5.9 on site, with Bayern 1.57 and the draw 4.9. Gladbach with +1 goal on the handicap, 2.08, and Bayern -1, 1.85. Over 3.5 goals is 1.98, and the under 3.5 goals, 1.93. Certainly one to watch by the sound of things. And Matt, Gladbach top of the league at this stage. An early season fluke or not?
Ooh, that's a good question. They've been very consistent. I mean, in terms of my system, I would say they've been very good to me. Basically, they've got the results where you would expect them to, and they've slipped up where they wouldn't be expected to get the result at home, at least. And that's to say, my system did pick the draw against Schalke. And the defeat to Leipzig, and certainly was against the opposition whenever they won. So,
what's it saying for this one then?
Well, interestingly, I mean, obviously it all depends on the team selections, but interestingly, it does say that Bayern Munich is the pick, even though Bayern Munich are fourth in the table and the league leaders at the league leaders. I think it's reasonable to say that because although Kovac obviously lost his job, there was very little patience over that. They put in Hansi Flick as the interim manager certainly to the end of the season as they've announced it. But in terms of XG, they've actually outscored every team they've played pretty much. There may be one exception, but again, if you look at the results that they've had. They lost away to Eintracht Frankfurt recently. They drew at Augsburg. At Leipzig as well, and they really only just laboured past in terms of the result a very poor Paderborn side. But in all those games, they were outscoring on the XG. Problem is, again, like Everton, they've only really got one reliable goal scorer in Lewandowski, and they're not able to put the ball into the net otherwise. So, I mean, you've put those odds up on the screen there, and 5-1. For a home win for the league leaders is an astonishing price. My system puts them at a substantial disadvantage to Bayern Munich in terms of the quality of the two sets of players, but it hasn't really clicked for Bayern yet. The new manager bounce was short-lived. They lost at home to Bayer Leverkusen last time out, Bayern. So, he's only had 2 games in charge. He's won 1, lost 1. So it's not done tremendously well. But again, they were outscoring Bayer Leverkusen. But I think, given that they have these inconsistencies, I think that opposing them at the price they're being offered at is, I don't know. I mean, I just can't think it really.
It's definitely well, let's bring in Mark.
One bit I would say, I think if you've got 1.5 goals in favour of Gladbach at 45% return on investment, so that's 1.45. I don't think that's too bad. I think you have the league leaders. It's not desperately short. It's particularly if you can double it up with something else on the Ackers. Plus 1.5, I think is quite generous. But it's too inconsistent. Ordinarily, I would have said that this would be. I would go with with what my system is saying, but the price is a real red flag on this one.
What about you, Mark? Gladbach there to stay, or as I said earlier, a bit of an early season fluke?
I think they possibly are there to stay, Ali. Marco Rose has done an amazing job since he's come in, stuck to his tried and trusted 4-3-3, which worked at Salzburg, and you can see massive improvements individually as well as collectively in their performance belief as well. They're now leading the Bundesliga for the longest time since they last won the title in 1977. I'm just amazed by these prices, really, because the underlying data suggests they're neck and neck. Gladbach are leading the league for XG from open play, Bayern leading it for playing XG. Combine the two, and they're pretty much neck and neck throughout. So for me, it's Gladbach plus 1.25 goals on the Asian handicap, meaning we're even making money if they lose by exactly 1 goal. The only way to lose this bet is if Bayern win by 2 or more goals. I'll just look at this Gladbach team. They're so settled. Rose has been fortunate enough to pick pretty much the same team, or almost the same team in every single game. It's only really the front 4 who really rotate. Thuram and Bolo, Player and Herman, all 4 of them have scored at least 4 goals this year. They really won't fear this Bayern team. They've got a great home record against Bayern. In fact, Bayern have picked up the fewest points per game average at Gladbach in Bundesliga history. It's a real bogey ground for them. I know individually and collectively they've got a far greater budget and playing pool, but there are issues in that team, especially defensively. Sula's out long term. Hernandez is out injured too. Last weekend against Leverkusen, they had Alaba and Martinez at centre half. Davies at left back, Pavard at right back. There's definitely flaws in that defence. Even if Boateng comes in or Pavard switches to centre back and Kimmich drops back to right back, they can mix things up, obviously, but individually they're certainly not anywhere near the level they have been in the last couple of years defensively because of those injuries. And then their record away at top 6 teams over the last few seasons isn't really convincing either. 7 wins from 16, just 4 clean sheets in the league this year too. So that's a big reason for me defensively is why they probably won't come over or probably won't beat that 1.25 handicap, because they have to score possibly 3 goals to try and land it because their defence is so poor. So for me, it's all about Gladbach here for this one. I think they're one of the best bets with a plus quarter goal start, 1.25 goal start on the Asian handicap across Europe this weekend.
Matt, you sort of led us to the edge. You got us teetering, and Mark's just given us the push that we needed.
Yeah. I thought it was 1.45 on the handicap for the plus 1.5, but there it is, 1.8. I mean, that's such a liquid market; it does move quickly. But that is real good value. 80% return. Yeah, you've got to look at that one as a decent bet and one of the best bets of the weekend, like Mark's saying.
Happy days. It's going to be a smashing game in Gladbach. Now for our underdog / outside chance section. This is where I give you guys a purely mythical £10 free bet. And there's only one rule, really. It has to be an outsider. It has to be an underdog. It's £10. And if it loses, you get your money back. Now for you guys, it's purely mythical because you've already got a Matchbook account. But for any listeners or viewers who do not have a Matchbook account, that offer is still live. A £10 bonus, your money back if your first bet loses. To make it interesting for the pod, for you guys, it has to be an outsider. And Matt, what have you gone for this week?
We've just talked about it, haven't we? I mean, given that I'm guaranteed to get the money back if it comes out the wrong way, then Borussia Mönchengladbach to beat Bayern Munich. You've got the league leaders playing another team at their home, and you're being offered a £50 return, £60 return on your. I know, because you wouldn't get the £10 because it's. Would you get the £10 back? How does that work on your details? Explain those details.
T's and C's available on site if you have to.
I'll put you on the
.com.
One way or the other. It's a £50 return on investment. Whether or not you get the stake back, I don't know. But yeah, I mean that is pretty astonishing. I think I would have to back that all day long if it's a free bet. Do it.
We're on the Gladbach train, that's for sure. Mark, long shot. You've done pretty well with these so far since we started this section. Where are we off to?
Same game. I've tried to look around, but the 2 outside shouts I could look at were Lazio and Gladbach, but Gladbach got the shout for me because Bayern should be nowhere near as short as 1.6 for an away game at Gladbach, even if Gladbach weren't top of the league. It's a terrible price. It's the traditional Klassiker in Germany. It's traditionally Bayern's bogey ground. And as we've seen so far this season, Gladbach are as good as anyone in that league right now. They're neck and neck in terms of expected goals and performance data. They have come up short against Leipzig and Dortmund, but Rosa was kind of tinkering with his team at those kind of stages, but he's certainly got more clarity about what he's doing this time around. And as I said, Bayern's defence has got issues at the moment, so a real opportunity there. 5-1 is very big.
Nice. Right. Well, we're all in on Die Fohlen, on the Foals in Germany. That is a game not to miss, that's for sure. The next section, any other business? Anything that we've not discussed, from our 2 Premier League games to Lazio Juventus to Gladbach against Bayern. There's a whole slate of other action across Europe, across the world. What stands out for you, Matt?
Well, I'm going to stick. I'm sure there is lots going on all over the place, but it's all at the Premier League, isn't it? Always. I mean, this is the epicenter of world football, and that's why I'm looking at a couple of other things. I like Liverpool to win at Bournemouth. I think that, again, it's a short price, but given the absolute juggernaut that Liverpool are, they've done so well last night against their City rivals in Merseyside derby. They've won that 5-2. Really going to put confidence in their legs. No tiredness at all, given that their opposition, Bournemouth, are having played 24 hours earlier than Liverpool. That may give them a bit of an advantage, and that may have affected the price in their favour. But when you're looking at almost 1.5 for a Liverpool win, Bournemouth tend to lose the games they're supposed to lose. They tend to draw the games they're supposed to draw, and they tend to win the games they're supposed to win at home. So it's quite a reliable thing, in terms of picking their results. So I would say that this one has to be yet another Liverpool win, extending that unbeaten run at the start of the season, extending or at least maintaining their lead at the top of the table. And if you can double that up with one or two of the others that we've looked at, I mean, I might have looked at the Everton Chelsea draw as a double for 4.5 to 1. That would seem 9 to 2, 4 to 1. That would seem a reasonable punt. Or maybe doubling it up with any of our selections on the Borussia Mönchengladbach. And it's a decent booster to the other things if you're getting 50% addition to that.
Good stuff. Well, as an EFL lover myself, and Mark as a European football lover, among other things, I'm not sure we would necessarily agree that the Premier League is only where it's at. In fact, I'm assuming, Mark, you're not taking us to the Premier League for your any other business.
Nah, Spain. It's not exactly the most glamour tie of the weekend, but Eibar take on Getafe on Sunday morning. Getafe, not a team we normally relish or kind of believe as a kind of a thrilling attacking football team, really lacking goals. They're very hard to beat, a bit of a nightmare to play against, but there are chinks in their armoury, and they go to an Eibar team under massive pressure. Obviously, the massive minnows in that league, but terrifically led by Jose Luis Mendilibar, thrown in quite a few wobblies though this year. They're only 2 points above the drop zone, 8 defeats and 15, lost 4-1 against Sociedad last weekend. So they are under pressure, but normally at their tiny little home, Ipura, they put up a decent fight. It's going to be tough though. Getafe don't lose often against teams outside of the big three in Spain, but the goals market actually takes my interest in this one, which is probably quite surprising. But the goals line set so low that I almost have to get involved, because over 1 3/4 goals is 1.74, which means we make money if there's 2 goals scored or more. To put that into perspective, Eibar have scored in 21 of the last 26 home games. They've averaged 1.5 goals per game in that sample. Getafe have only kept 4 clean sheets away in 26 league matches since the start of last season. So immediately we anticipate Eibar scoring this match, but Getafe have Jorge Molina back, the star striker from suspension. They scored in 19 of 26 away games. And you just look at their records this season, over 1.5 goals is copped in 25 of their combined 30 games. 14 of those have gone over 2.5, and 16 have seen both teams score. So, I expected the goals line to be around 2.25 for this mark, but it's been set much lower. And I think if we can profit, maybe even just a half stakes profit from a line such as low as this, then I think we have to get involved, really. I think it's 1.74 for over 1 3/4 goals. Eibar against Getafe, I think, is a great bet in Spain this weekend.
A game at Eibar's tiny little home, as you call it. But I must be careful not to be condescending, Mark. I know that you're a fan of QPR, the biggest club in the world, but no, it's a great club, Eibar, and it's worth reading up on them and how they've operated and how they've punched above their weight over the last few years, if anyone's got any interest in learning more about that. Right, best bet time to finish us off. I'm going to throw a bit of a wobbly if you guys had such a good week with Sully and you don't follow it up here. So please make sure that we get these at the very least. What are we going hardest at this weekend, starting with you, Matt?
I think that when you're looking at 1.8, 80% return on investment for 1.5 goal advantage for Gladbach against Bayern Munich, go for it. I mean, I think that's okay. You're not getting double your stake, but I mean, why not look at that? I think that's a really strong price.
That's probably the strongest.
I mean, I always say, don't get hit. Be like a boxer when you're gambling. Don't get punched. And if you're getting an 80% return on investment, then that's a decent one.
And Mark, best bet of the weekend?
I'm split down the middle, really. It's Gladbach plus 1 1/4 on the Asian line, or the over 1 3/4 goals at Eibar Getafe. But as Matt's gone for Gladbach, I'll take Eibar Getafe to have 2 goals or more.
Good stuff, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me, lending me and the listeners and viewers your expertise. Just a reminder to anyone watching, if you haven't got a Matchbook account, there is a £10 risk-free bet for new customers. Sign up today. If your first bet loses, Matchbook will refund you up to £10. This offer is for over 18s only. And we ask everyone listening to be gamble aware. Acca's on site as well. We've discussed so many different selections, different games, that if you want to double, triple some of those up, you can now do that on the Matchbook site. If you head to the Matchbook site, it'll become very clear how to do that. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. Let's hope for a good weekend. Best of luck to everyone with your fancies this weekend. And we'll be back again with the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast this time next week.